The beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room, rhythmic and steady, almost mocking me with its calm. I blinked against the harsh hospital lights, my fingers hovering over my phone. Who can pick me up from the hospital? I typed into the family chat, then stared at the screen, hesitating. It felt strange, this tiny request so simple yet so loaded. I tucked the hem of my soft cashmere sweater into my hospital-issued gown, trying to feel dignified in the chaos. My apartment, my life, was far from this sterile environment, yet somehow I felt a strange clarity here, in vulnerability. I imagined my son's face, probably glancing at his phone while juggling work, a hint of worry in his eyes. Past disappointments flickered behind my eyelids, relatives who never called, the gentle but pointed criticisms that followed every life choice. And yet, here I was, a woman who had built her life quietly, fiercely, a life they rarely noticed. The irony wasn't lost on me. The phone buzzed. My heart jumped, not from pain, but from a fragile, fluttering hope. The message preview teased at something familiar. I swallowed and touched the screen, remembering that even in our most ordinary acts, like asking for a ride, the past has a way of showing up. I remembered the autumn afternoon when my world first felt unbearably small. I was 24, fresh out of college, full of ideas, hope, and ambition. My parents' living room smelled of old leather and polished wood, and sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting rigid lines across the floor. I had just told them I wanted to pursue my own career in graphic design, not the family's law firm as they expected. The silence that followed was heavy, like a storm hanging in the air, waiting to break. My father shifted in his chair, jaw tight, and my mother pursed her lips, clearly disappointed. "We just want what's best for you, Lily," my mother said, her voice calm but sharp, slicing through the optimism I carried. "This path, it's uncertain. You'll fail without us." My hands shook, clutching the small charm bracelet my grandmother had given me the year before. It was a simple silver chain with a tiny heart-shaped locket, scratched and worn from years of love. I touched it now, seeking courage from someone who had always believed in me. "Maybe I need to fail on my own," I whispered, more to the bracelet than to them. The arguments escalated, voices rising, words like daggers cutting away the support I had once taken for granted. "You'll regret this," my father warned, and I felt a sting deeper than any physical pain I'd ever known. But beneath the fear, a quiet resolve began to form. I realized that relying on their approval meant surrendering my own life. By the end of that tense evening, I had made my decision. I packed my small suitcase, left the letter on the kitchen counter explaining that I would make my way independently, and stepped into the unknown. I clutched the locket tightly, as if it carried not just memories, but the permission to believe in myself. That simple silver heart would become my talisman, reminding me through years of struggle and self-doubt that I was capable of creating my own life. It was terrifying, stepping into the unknown. And yet, somehow, it was the first taste of freedom I had ever truly known. The first months on my own were a blur of long nights, cramped apartment spaces, and an endless loop of, "Is this enough?" I worked 2 part-time jobs while taking evening classes, sketching logos and layouts in the dim light of my tiny desk lamp. My charm bracelet jingled softly each time I moved my hand, a constant reminder that someone, somewhere, believed in me even when I didn't fully believe in myself. It was during one of these late nights at a local coffee shop that I met Elena Moreno. She was a seasoned graphic designer with a small but thriving studio downtown, sipping black coffee with the same intensity one felt in my veins. "You have the eye," she said, flipping through my sketchbook, "but you're holding back. Fear is expensive, Lily. Don't let it bankrupt you." Her words cut through my self-doubt like sunlight through fog. Elena became my mentor, my guide through the labyrinth of freelance work, client rejections, and endless revisions. She taught me how to pitch confidently, how to negotiate contracts, how to stand firm when clients doubted my value. I learned to translate every no into a lesson, every failed project into a stepping stone. The first big win came unexpectedly. A boutique publishing house liked my design proposal for a new book cover series. When they called to offer me the contract, my hands shook uncontrollably, but I didn't let them see. That first check, small as it was, felt like proof that independence wasn't just a dream, it was possible. I kept a delicate balance, sharing vague updates on social media, enough to appear busy, but never exposing the full scope of my success. Family messages asking about my life were met with casual replies, careful and measured. I wasn't hiding out of shame. I was building a sanctuary, a life they couldn't undermine or dismiss. Months turned into years. Studio contracts grew, clients trusted my vision, and slowly, I assembled a team of talented freelancers who respected my leadership. Each small victory, the first profitable project, the first glowing client testimonial, the first time I walked into my studio with my name on the door, felt monumental. The silver heart bracelet glinted every morning in the sunlight streaming through my office window, a daily reminder that this journey wasn't just about success. It was about survival, courage, and claiming a life that belonged fully to me. And through it all, I thought of that simple text I might one day send. Can someone pick me up from the hospital? Who would answer? Who truly cared? I had learned that independence was not just wealth or skill, it was the knowledge that I could stand on my own and be whole, regardless of who showed up. The day my parents and some relatives came over after my surgery, I felt a quiet thrill simmering beneath my calm exterior. They were expecting a fragile, dependent version of me, pale, weak, needing constant attention. Instead, they were greeted by a living room that smelled faintly of fresh jasmine and leather-bound books, sun spilling over my carefully arranged art pieces, each chosen not for decoration but as a testament to years of work and care. I opened the door wearing a soft yet tailored blouse, my hair loosely tied, a subtle statement of self-respect rather than vanity. My parents' eyes flicked around the room, trying to read the environment as if it could explain my current state. My mother's lips parted, but no words came. My father's hand hovered midair, uncertain whether to reach out or retract. Lily, my mother stammered, finally. Her voice had that familiar mix of concern and criticism, the same one that used to suffocate me. I smiled faintly, setting my phone down on the marble side table. Please call me Lily. I'm fine, and thank you for coming. My voice was steady, calm, but held an undercurrent of authority that I knew they felt instantly. They noticed the small details, the framed awards on the shelves, the signed contracts pinned discreetly to a corkboard, the neat stack of invoices that hinted at financial independence. They saw the organized studio corner, my computer screens lit with a client presentation ready for launch. Every detail screamed competence, autonomy, and success they hadn't expected to see. And your apartment? This everything, my father finally asked, incredulity cracking his voice. I thought you were struggling. I let the pause linger before answering, watching the realization settle over them. I have been managing, on my own, successfully. The words were simple, but the impact was palpable. Then, with careful precision, I led them to my desk, pulled up my portfolio, and showed them the clients I had built relationships with, the projects I had completed, the revenue generated. Their disbelief shifted into something heavier: shame, recognition, and perhaps a touch of guilt. I let them absorb it fully before continuing. I'm not the same girl who left home thinking she needed approval or guidance at every turn, I said softly, almost conversationally, but with the weight of years behind it. I am capable. I have built a life that doesn't rely on anyone else's validation. And while I am grateful for those who support me, I will never allow my self-worth to be dictated by judgment or neglect again. Their expressions shifted. My mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. My father looked as though he'd swallowed something bitter. They were forced to reconcile their expectations with reality, to see the independent, powerful woman they had underestimated. Even my younger cousin, who had always dismissed me as quiet and fragile, stared wide-eyed at the carefully curated space, her mouth slightly agape. I felt a thrill, yes, but also a quiet satisfaction. The truth of my life could no longer be hidden or doubted. After the initial shock faded, The room settled into an uneasy quiet. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of my years of struggle and triumph fill the space. This was the moment I had always anticipated, not for revenge, but for clarity, boundaries, and accountability. "I appreciate your concern," I began, my voice calm yet unwavering, "but I need to be clear about what I will allow moving forward. I am not the same person I was when I left home. My life is mine to protect and nurture, and I expect that to be respected." My mother shifted uncomfortably, but I continued. "If you want to be part of my life, I need honesty, support, and acknowledgement of my autonomy. No criticism disguised as advice, no dismissive comments about my choices, and no assumptions about my capabilities. If that feels impossible, I understand, but I cannot compromise my well-being." Turning to my father, I softened slightly, though my resolve remained unshaken. "Dad, I need you to recognize that your concern does not give you authority. You can be involved, but only if it comes with respect, encouragement, and trust. I will not be dictated by fear or judgment." I noticed my younger cousin fidgeting nervously, eyes on my bracelet, that silver heart glinting under the afternoon light. "And to you?" I said gently. "If you want to learn from me, observe without mocking, listen without judgment, and pursue your own path rather than living in the shadow of others. We all have the power to change, but only if we take responsibility for ourselves." Setting conditions wasn't about power for its own sake. It was about creating an environment where growth and love could coexist. I reminded them that respect is earned, boundaries are sacred, and forgiveness requires effort. Compassion could only flourish when old patterns of toxicity were abandoned. I finished with a quiet but firm note. "I am open to connection, but it must be mutual. I will not compromise my health, my happiness, or my independence for comfort or familiarity. If you choose to respect that, welcome. If not, I will continue building a life filled with people who honor me fully." As I spoke, I sensed the subtle shift in the room. Faces softened, tension eased, and though there was still disbelief lingering, a seed of understanding had been planted. I realized that setting conditions wasn't cruelty. It was love for myself and for those willing to rise to meet me. Weeks passed after that day, and the changes were subtle but undeniable. My mother started calling not to critique, but to genuinely check in, her voice softer, her questions less loaded. My father, once rigid and unyielding, began attending my small gallery openings, nodding with quiet pride instead of judgment. Even my cousin, who had always dismissed me as timid, started asking for advice on her own projects, listening earnestly for the first time. I watched these shifts with cautious optimism, understanding that transformation doesn't happen overnight. People change when they see consequences, when they feel respect, and when they recognize the strength of those they once underestimated. I had given them boundaries, and in response, they had begun to meet me on my terms. One evening, as the sun set and the apartment glowed in warm amber light, I held the silver heart bracelet in my hands. The scratches on its surface told the story of resilience, of small victories stacked upon each other, like bricks forming a home. I traced the delicate locket with my thumb, remembering the frightened 24-year-old girl who had left her family to chase a dream she barely believed in. Now, the bracelet felt heavier, not with burden, but with proof. Proof of endurance, of self-respect, of the life I had built brick by brick, decision by decision. It was a reminder that no matter the illness, the setbacks, or the doubts cast by others, I had the power to choose, to rise, and to thrive. I smiled softly, thinking of the text I had sent weeks ago. "Who can pick me up from the hospital?" My son had arrived without hesitation, with care, patience, and love. In that simple act, I saw the full circle of my life. The independence I had fought for, balanced with the relationships I now cherished, healthier and stronger than ever. And as I placed the bracelet on my wrist, I whispered to myself, a quiet affirmation that felt as much like a promise as a victory. I am whole, I am capable, and I will never let anyone's doubt define my worth again.